Of medical disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and this video is not medical advice. Consult a healthcare professional before trying Methylene Blue. What's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of Ste Reacts. We have got an interesting one today, Methylene Blue. I'm going to be learning with you guys. I'm split on this. Sometimes I think, wow, there's a lot of research here, and there's a lot of people saying it was profoundly helpful for them for all manner of things. And then you have other people coming out saying, like, it's not natural, it's synthetic, it causes harm, it's going to mess up your mitochondrial electron transport chain. It is wild. So we're going to scour the internet today and hear from both sides of the aisle to see if we can't come to some kind of conclusion. What's the deal with methylene blue? All right, so before we get into the videos, what is methylene blue? So my understanding is that it's a compound that was discovered in the late 1800s, originally as a textile dye. First cotton, then used in denim production, but found by scientists when they were looking to dye living tissue, either for experiments or surgeries, where they clearly needed to see blue, don't touch, and red, do touch, or whatever they were doing. But in that process, they found that it had some very interesting effects on these living tissues, like potentially being antibacterial, antimicrobial, affecting the electron transport chain. And then it largely got lost, unless it was used in the services, or it was used in the wars, or it was used for cyanide poisoning. But now it is back. 2025 is the year of methylene blue. You've seen the blue tongues, you've seen all the craziness. Is it good, bad? Is it the savior? Is it going to ruin your electron transport chain? I don't know. Let's find out.
Methylene blue. Heard this thrown around a bunch. I've seen people with the blue tongues. What does that do?
So methylene blue has been used for, actually you can look historically for a really long time. It's been used to treat different types of infections in the body, sometimes urinary tract infections, actually.
Oh, okay.
And actually there are studies now showing it actually helps healing and energizing our mitochondria. It actually helps your body create cellular energy. And there's a lot of patients with chronic infections, even like Lyme and different viral infections as well, parasites, that respond really, really well to methylene blue.
Interesting.
Interesting. Very interesting, right? Like, we take that on face value. Sounds pretty good. Seems like it's broadly applicable. He is right. There are tons of studies on methylene blue. It's pretty wild, actually. Maybe even thousands of hits. So there's something here. This is widely studied. That was a positive. It's interesting. Let's continue to see what we can dig up. Okay, the next clip we're going to play, the caption for this is, yesterday I posted a story of a doctor using methylene blue and it was removed. Here's some info about it and the issues going on.
Morning everyone, excuse me, just come back from a sweaty walk, so, but juices are...
Oh, he's English, a sweaty walk. The juices are flowing, let's hear it.
I just wanted to talk about a post that I had removed yesterday via Instagram for violating the community standards. Now, all I simply did was post an article that was showing that a pulmonary doctor in India was who had some great case studies and has treated people for tuberculosis and obviously treating people preventatively and also dealing with COVID in India at the moment. He's a pulmonary doctor. He understands the issues associated with respiratory disease. So it was interesting when I posted his article about treating these clients and preventatively with methylene blue that it was removed for going against community standards. Now I found that really, really interesting because here I was just sharing an article on something that potentially was acting as a really great agent. Now for many of you that...
Before he goes any further, that sound familiar to anybody? Going against community guidelines? I know I experienced that a little bit during the COVID days when you were just sharing like, hey, maybe this thing could be helpful, or maybe what if we think about this? And all of a sudden you are shadow banned or just outright banned because you are breaking the rules. You got to question, like, who's setting the rules and why can't we just talk about this? It seems to be reasonable. So it's interesting. This stuff is still going on, this time for the blue stuff.
If you don't know, methylene blue usually comes in something like a jar like this. It is a synthetic dye.
It is kind of crazy that we're talking about this as potentially being something like a supplement or medicinal for some people when it is a dye, or that's what it was invented as. So let's continue.
It is a grandfathered drug, also called in the FDA, because historically it was used over and over again. Some of the historical perspectives of methylene blue. The Nobel Science Prize winner, and I think it was in 1936, Albert St. Georgi, who was awarded the prize for isolating vitamin C, used methylene blue for restoring damaged functioning tissue. So what methylene blue does, it restores the ability to produce energy efficiently using oxygen. So what's super interesting is that many people who have advanced states of disease have lost the capacity to utilize this oxidative pathway where we use carbohydrates and fats efficiently. So it's part of something called the electron transport chain. And for those of you who don't have much of a biology background, we have complexes 1 through to 4, which basically push electrons across and create energy, ultimately ATP, water and carbon dioxide. And this is a self-fulfilling cycle when energy is efficient, it's optimal and it's organized. So when you have people who are being poisoned by cyanide, nitrate poisoning, you see even in fish tanks, it's used in fish tanks to restore water quality when animals have been poisoned by nitrates. And so you can actually pick up very cheap products of methylene blue for very, very small amounts. Now, usually USP methylene blue is probably the thing to go because it's the least amount of negative things that could be in there, so it's well tested. So it's interesting to note that you can restore function and probably act as a prophylaxis and restore and even prevent the aspects of COVID that are being seen here. Now, I don't know why that went against community standards, because all I was showing that a medical doctor, was using methylene blue and inhaling it via a nebulizer, which I found really interesting because I've seen some very interesting and very positive effects of using methylene blue in Parkinson's clients, in somebody who's been injured with certain interventions. And so I find it fascinating that this goes against community standards.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think it's getting more traction now and people are using it in different ways. I've never heard of nebulizer methylene blue. That's fascinating. I don't know, Mel Gibson was on Rogan recently and he talked about 2 of his friends that were in late stage cancer and they used methylene blue and they reversed the cancers. Like, these are the kinds of stories you hear about. And, you know, maybe it sends the spidey senses tingling a little bit that this is an old drug or an old treatment that has been around for a long time. It's not particularly expensive. I don't think it's controlled that much. And therefore, if it is a powerful either antioxidant or it can help the electron transport chain, which is mitochondrial function, which you could go as far as to say that maybe any disease is a deficiency of mitochondrial function. And if it gets in there and reverses that, and you have lots of these anecdotal stories of things like recovering from TBIs, which are brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries like concussions, or you've got like these anti-cancer stories, or reversing or at least aiding in neurodegeneration from like Parkinson's and things like that. And then methylene blue is here and it exists. Then we've seen this playbook before, that the FDA, the CDC, whoever controls that kind of medicinal interventions doesn't like things that are cheap, widely available, and broadly applicable, because they usually just kind of interfere with plans to roll out something else that they are cooking up that can come and save the day. So very, very interesting, and unfortunately not very surprising that it gets censored still. Let's go to TikTok.
But you studied neuroscience.
Yeah. I'd postgrad at Harvard and Duke, but I'd retired from the military and then started having these seizures. So then I found a neurologist, the drug that they gave me, the number 1 side effect was seizures from this pharmaceutical company. So I kind of looked around and I found this guy's a functional medicine guy, and he got me on methylene blue. That instantly stopped everything. And some other stuff.
It was a fabric dye, right?
Yeah, in 1890.
How weird.
And
who the fuck drank it first?
it tastes like chewing an aspirin.
I'd take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I take it every day.
No, Rogan's on.
And
yeah, RFK Jr. told me about it.
Yeah, man, it's fantastic. And so this guy's injecting, in 1890, injects these rats with it and then does an autopsy on these things. And their brain, the brainstem, every single nerve is blue. So he discovered this methylene blue has an affinity for neuronal tissue. So he says, well, it's sucking into neurons. What's it doing? So we could talk about it if you want to, but
sure,
how it's working and working in the body. So we started putting it in humans, and we found out it's an MAOI, which is just
monoamine oxide inhibitor.
Yeah,
yeah,
which helps with depression.
Yeah, this is interesting. I've heard of this contraindication too. So unfortunately, we've got a lot of people in our culture that are on SSRI drugs and other brain modulating drugs. And it seems to be contraindicated for methylene blue because it's an MAOI. Rogan knew that so quickly because that's in the plant medicine world too. The ayahuasca vine cannot activate unless they pair it with something that is an MAOI. And it seems to like very potently act on the serotonin receptor. So it's serotonergic. So it's having some kind of antidepressant effect too, mood boosting. But this guy is another one of these crazy stories where he was having regular seizures, started methylene blue, and they went away almost immediately. Like, what is this thing? How is a fabric dye doing this? Is it all down to this electron transport chain issue? I know we've got outspoken guys like love him or hate him, but Dr. Jack Kruse has talked about him doing neurosurgeries on people. He was a brain surgeon, and in certain cases, he would only operate on brains on the operating table, and he would infuse the treatment. He would bathe the brain in methylene blue as he was doing the surgeries. Like, this is high-level stuff. This is not just for making genes blue. There is something going on with this thing, and it's quite fascinating.
What's up, guys? Hope you're having a beautiful morning. What we have here is a glass of methylene blue. Methylene blue is an electron donor. It also helps act as an antioxidant to clean your mitochondria so that you produce more ATP and your body is more effective at neutralizing free radicals. Typical dosages are about 0.5 milligrams up to 4 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. And so here I'm starting with a very low dose at about half of the lower threshold just to be conservative. It also has the added benefit of acting as a nootropic, so you have enhanced cognitive function.
There's the electron transport chain stuff again. It seems to be most potently acting and giving you more energy. Energy, the currency of life, energy internally in the body will be used non-discriminatorily to do what the body needs to do, whether it's heal. This antibacterial, antifungal, anti-parasitic stance is also really interesting too. Like, one of the early uses of it was to treat poisoning, like cyanide poisoning. So the rabbit hole gets deeper and weirder. Oh, I've seen this video. This is RFK. Like, this is mega dosing, by the way. Homie just did like 2 full droppers of methylene blue. I've heard people that are into this space say that that is not the dose that you should take under any normal circumstances. However, that like flying is a huge stressor. You're surrounded by non-native EMFs. You've got like transient hypoxia. You've got like just all of these other stressors. And maybe if you're RFK Jr., you're under a lot of stress. You know what I'm saying? So maybe he needs to megadose methylene blue. If RFK's onto it, maybe the Maha movement is going to be having all blue tongue soon. Now, let's hear about some potential side effects. Nothing is a biological free lunch, right? There's been a lot of positives so far. Let's see some of these negatives.
Now, side effects are rare with methylene blue when doses are under 2 milligrams per kilogram, but can include stomach pain, chest pain, dizziness, headache, sweating, confusion, high blood pressure, shortness of breath, accelerated heartbeat, tremors, skin turning blue, urine turning blue or green, reduction of red blood cells, or jaundice, but only reported in infants.
That sounded like one of those commercials where they show everybody like living a happy life and they're like, side effects may include death and nausea or vomiting. So you're... he said, I mean, it's very rare, I guess. That seems to be when you overindulge. So don't go to RFK Jr. levels if you don't want to blue pee. All right, next up is Paul. And I know Paul's stance on methylene blue. Spoiler alert, he's not a fan. We talked about this on one of my episodes of Radical Health Radio podcast. I asked him what was one of the health trends that he would love to see die in 2025. And he knew right off the bat. He said, methylene blue, I hope this dies. So let's see a little bit of what Paul's got to say about this.
Are you guys taking methylene blue? A lot of people are in the health space now, but I have my concerns. You've seen the blue tongues out there. Did you know that methylene blue actually also turns your brain blue and it can turn your heart blue? I don't know about this, guys. Look, it works by moving electrons down the electron transport chain in your mitochondria. Good for someone that has a block in the mitochondrial electron transport chain, but most of us don't have that. Even if you're not the most metabolically healthy person, this is not the way to fix your mitochondria. A lot of people in the health space are saying that it improves mitochondrial function. Nothing could be further from the truth. If you don't have a frank block in your mitochondrial electron transport chain, methylene blue is actually decreasing the amount of ATP produced in your cells. Lower energy production is bad for humans. That is not a health hack. People think they feel better on methylene blue because it changes serotonin levels in your brain. Methylene blue is an MAOA, a monoamine oxidase A inhibitor. It's a strong one. This means it can cause serotonin syndrome if you're taking antidepressants or other compounds compounds that increase serotonin in your body, like 5-HTP, rhodiola, SAMe, or St. John's wort. For most people, methylene blue is worsening your energy production, but you are being misled by the fact that the MAOA inhibition is raising serotonin, making you feel a certain way that is not reflective of increased function of your mitochondria or better energy production. If you are generally healthy, if you don't have genetic defects in your mitochondrial electron transport chain, this is not for you. How should you be metabolically healthy? Eat meat, organs, fruit, raw dairy, go in the sun and exercise. Send this to somebody you know who takes methylene blue, and comment below blue if you want my free newsletter on methylene blue coming out tomorrow. I'll send you a link.
All right, damn. Paul, not a fan. He's bringing receipts too. You know, Paul's a smart guy. He does his research. And that's a very interesting point, that unless you have a frank block in your electron transport chain, Saladino's take is it's not going to help, and it could be causing more harm than good. What's very interesting is his call to action at the end to comment in the sections was kind of littered with people who were saying, but Paul, this helped me immensely, which is kind of crazy. And then there is this response from Vance, who owns Meraki Medicinals, which is a large seller of methylene blue. So obvious a conflict of interest here, but some interesting counterpoints. So let's watch that too.
You know that methylene blue actually also turns your brain blue, and it can turn your heart blue? I don't know about this, guys. Look.
I love when people say, I don't know, and then they make a point. So methylene blue does not stain living tissue, and it does not accumulate in tissue. We know this for a fact. We have one case report of a blue brain of someone who was treated for septic shock with a high dose of methylene blue right before they died. Everyone in World War I who was in the Navy took methylene blue. I know a lot of people died in World War I, and we have 0 case reports of blue organs from people who got blown up left and right.
If that point is true, by the way, of like, we've only got one case report of the blue brain, it was like right before death, a high dose, septic shock, and there's only one, then that is a little bit of cherry picking. And you know, this interesting point. Firstly, why were all of these Navy soldiers taking methylene blue in World War I? They were clearly doing it for some reason. But you would think that in the case reports and everything that has been documented since then, that if these blown up bodies were scattered around everywhere, that somebody probably would have wrote about what's going on here with these blue organs, and we don't have that. So that is interesting. I have had methylene blue on my fingers, and it does temporarily stain, but it always comes off. So well, we'll carry on. We'll see what this is all about.
Second, he states that the only benefit or the boost you feel from methylene blue is just from the serotonergic properties of methylene blue. I didn't know serotonergic properties include improved in cognition, short-term memory, long-term memory, focus, defense against age-related decline in neurocognition, and protection of neurons against traumatic brain injury or concussions, including the healing times being sped up.
That's a pretty fair pushback. Serotonin and modulating the serotonin pathway is mostly about mood. There's other things though that are definitely neurological. The healing of the brain, the focus, the memory. I mean, the brain is complex, and these pathways certainly cross over. But those, you can't say that if methylene blue is improving these things, that it's purely because of the serotonergic effects when these are different pathways. So I think that's an interesting pushback.
No SSRI or no serotonin activity in the brain is going to cause that. Now, also, he is saying that unless you have a blatant block in your electron transport chain, you're not going to feel methylene blue. This is false as well. All the research points to ATP production being increased in the cell, and that's because methylene blue is an antioxidant in the cell. So it gets in the mitochondria and it can grab slipped electrons. The same electrons needed to make adenotriphosphate, which is ATP, your body's energy currency. Now, if you do have a blatant block like cyanide poisoning, it will get in and it can reverse that poisoning inside the cell and fix the mitochondrial respiration, but it also is known to help people who seemingly are healthy improve that by improving oxidative phosphorylation, reversing the Warburg effect, which is also prominent in cancer cells. So methylene blue will help you even if you don't have a blatant block. I mean, the research is pretty clear there, just because it is at its core an antioxidant, which is the same exact thing as vitamin C. But it doesn't work for just the immune system, it works for your energy system as well. Pretty amazing. So I think methylene blue is very viral, and I think anyone going against the grain right now and showing the blue brain picture is getting a lot of clicks and likes. If you can garner attention, you can garner currency. I do own a methylene blue company, so I understand this massively. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, but do your own research.
Do your own research. I think that's interesting, and this will be probably a continuing debate. Like I said, there are big names that are very pro methylene blue. Guys like Jack Cruz, for example, and then Paul is a big name who is anti it in the case unless you have a very specific block in your electron transport chain. What Vance is proposing here is that that's not true, that in all of these cases, it improves mitochondrial function and the production of ATP. And if that is the case, then isn't that what we're all trying to do? Everything we do pick a trend. Red light therapy. What is it at when it comes down to just brass taxes? It's trying to produce ATP. What are we trying to do with metabolism? Trying to produce ATP. So if this is what methylene blue is doing, and it's not only doing it for people with a broken electron transport chain, then you could make the argument that it's a good thing. I think this war will continue, and I think we've still got a lot left to learn.
There are people out there who are ingesting methylene blue. And when I was a kid, I used methylene blue to clean my fish tank. Why in the world would people ingest methylene blue?
So methylene blue is used in fish tank cleaners. This is absolutely true. But please do not drink fish tank cleaner. Do I have to say that, really? But yes, don't drink fish tank cleaner, okay? So methylene blue is contaminated with heavy metals if you get it from fish tank cleaner. But if you get it from a reputable source like Transcriptions, where we purity, potency test everything, every single batch, it is pure methylene blue. Is there a reason to take pure methylene blue? The answer is absolutely yes. It's called a redox cycler, which means it helps you make more energy, and it also builds your resilience at the same time. So don't be afraid about methylene blue. Don't buy it from your fish tank cleaner store and start ingesting it. Just get it from a reputable source like us.
This kind of reminds me of the ivermectin thing, right? That like you could get the just kind of pharmaceutical grade, it's pure ivermectin. And then during the COVID pandemic, if you thought that that was an alternative safe therapy, that people were going out and buying the horse dewormer, which is one of the terms they use to attack people like Rogan when he took it, because it's like a paste and it's strawberry flavored, and you give it to your animals on your land, and there's a bunch of other stuff in it. So this is kind of similar here. Will people go out now and drink fish tank cleaner because it has methylene blue in it? Probably. Is that advisable? Almost certainly not. You want to get it clean, and you want to get the real deal if you want to try methylene blue for yourself. And I think anything that goes viral is going to, you're going to start seeing more of it. People are going to jump on the trend. I do think that you have to check where this is coming from. See if you can find American made, like tested, and they show that transparency that there is no heavy metals in this stuff, because I know that there's a lot of stuff coming out of China. I have quality concerns around that. People are pumping it out really quick. So don't go to your fish tank cleaner and just start chugging that, just like you wouldn't go to the horse paste store and start chugging that. Get the real thing, get the real deal, and see what it does for you. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of studies looking at methylene blue. There's a lot of positive, there's a lot of negative. It seems that a lot of the negative studies definitely talk about the contraindications when people take this, and they're also doing something like an SSRI because it is this MAOI, and that is a huge contradiction. If you are on those medications or psychotropic medications, methylene blue doesn't seem to be your friend, and I would move forward with a lot of caution if that is the case. But like I said, there's a lot of studies, and a lot of them are positive. This one is really interesting. This was looking at methylene blue effect on Alzheimer's disease. And this was from the abstract and conclusion. Methylene blue is a promising treatment for neurological disorders, including Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and traumatic brain injury. Animal studies and clinical trials have demonstrated its potential to improve cognitive function, reduce oxidative stress, and protect against neurodegeneration. However, some studies have found adverse effects and safety concerns with methylene blue. Vance, from a couple of videos ago, has an interesting story. That's how he stumbled upon methylene blue. He got a concussion in an MMA fight and used to treat TBI. These other anecdotal stories we've showed you today are cases like this. Mel Gibson being on Rogan talking about how his two friends cured cancer with methylene blue. Like, something crazy is going on with this. We don't quite fully understand it, I don't think, yet. I think we're going to learn a lot more. When something gets trend behind it, the good news is it brings awareness. And with that awareness, we're going to start to pull it apart. But it seems like as many as there are going to be some naysayers. Paul is one of them. And I think, you know, it makes sense as to why. And this is my personal confliction with methylene blue, is it's not natural. And we try to go towards a more natural solution. And he mentioned, like, hey, you want to improve mitochondrial efficiency? Then get out in the sun and eat an animal-based diet. And there's so much truth to that. That's probably the biggest rocks you could stack. And modern problems maybe require modern solutions. And this might be one of those things that seems to hold some hidden benefits for a lot of people, and maybe not for a lot of people. And my personal story is, I still don't really know where I stand on it. When I see something getting this much traction, I'm kind of like want to turn myself into the lab rat. So I bought some and I took it. I didn't mega dose. I followed all the procedures, and I really didn't notice anything, good or bad. And when I was joking around with Paul on the podcast, that made me feel better, because he said, well, you probably wouldn't feel it if you have a healthy electron transport chain. So I just gave myself a little pat on the back and was like, maybe that's because I'm healthy. And I haven't really used it since. I didn't notice something when I started. I didn't notice something when I stopped. But you go into the comments on these posts and you see people that were like, I had crippling anxiety, intense brain fog, I had cancer, my mother-in-law was going through a neurodegenerative episode, and methylene blue fixed it all. So who knows? This is going to be wild, and I think we're going to buckle up and learn a lot that's coming from people that are going to get into some friendly debates and maybe some banter online. Methylene Blue, source it well. Consider what you're actually doing it for. Don't blindly follow any health trend. Actually think for yourself. And just a reminder, I am not the medical professional, and this is not medical advice. Try at your own risk, and we highly suggest working with a medical professional, especially if you are currently taking any medications.